Alright everyone, today we're doing one of the most important concepts in programming, functions, and we're going to start out in Paint, make a little analogy, and then we're going to move over to Godot. So let's talk about functions. With a quick definition, a function is a reusable block of code we can call from another function or another area of our script. So functions do something, and functions oftentimes return something. They can also take something, and when they take something, that is called an argument. So it's kind of like a server at a restaurant. And you're kind of like the patron. You call the server over and you say something like, hey, I want to pay my bill. Then you give that server money, they return to you with your change, and so on and so forth. They may not return to you with anything. You may have paid with exact change, or you may say something like, give my compliments to the chef, and in that case, there's nothing to return to you with. So that, in a sense, is a lot like how functions work. You also may not know what the server is doing in the background, so on and so forth. So in programming, we use functions whenever we're using a block of code more than once. Even if it's just twice, you should make it into a function. And why is that? It is so that we keep our code clean. We don't have a whole bunch of repetitive code clogging up important areas of our script. And it's also so that when we make changes, we make them in one place and they propagate out everywhere instead of us having to make changes in a whole bunch of copy and pasted code, copying and pasting stuff over and over again. So let's get into Godot and break it down real quick. So we're in the editor, we're going to make a 2D node, we're going to call it running node because it's going to be the only thing running in our entire project. We're going to give it a script called running node.gd. We're going to create it, extends node 2D, that's fine. And then when you start a Godot script, it usually looks something like this. And that's all fine and dandy. So we're going to make a variable. We'll call it number, and we're going to give it a value of 5. We're also going to make that variable an integer. Then we're going to go down here, and we're going to add 1 to that number. And we're going to print that number. So we're going to see 6 in the console down here. We're going to select current, save the scene, and we have 6 down in the bottom left. So let's say for the sake of argument, you have to add 1 everywhere in your program, or just even in one more spot. Perfect situation to make this into a function. So let's do that really quick. We're going to use the function keyword. We're going to give our function a name, in this case add 1. We're going to do an open parenthesis, and then our argument, which in this case is going to be new number. And we're going to do a colon, and we're going to do int, which the colon represents that we're going to do a data type next, and we do the data type of int. We're going to make a arrow using hyphen and the greater than sign, and then we're going to have our return type, which in this case is going to be int. We're going to end it with another colon. And then we're going to hit enter and then type the word return, new number plus 1. Okay, let's break that down again. We have our function keyword, which tells Godot we're about to declare a function. We have our function name, which is what we as programmers give to our function to signify what it does. It's supposed to be descriptive but short. We have our function argument, which in our analogy was the money that you gave to the server. We have our data type for that argument. Then we have the arrow, which can be thought of as the word returns. And then we have the data type that we return. Whoops, the data type that we return right here. So let's break that down one more time, but a little bit faster. We have our function keyword, our function name, our argument, then our argument's data type, the returns arrow, and then the data type of our return. Now, the way we have it right now, we have the word return, and then we have what we return. It can kind of be thought of like this. I don't know if Godot is going to like that. It's fine with it. So we're going to return a new number plus 1, and that is what our function will return. So if we delete all of this and then we do, we just delete this line and we do add 1, we do number equals add 1 number. So we'll see down here, we get the number 6 down in the bottom left again. Now, a couple important pitfalls before you take off with this information. Notice how, if we don't return anything, we get an error. Not all code paths return a value. If you have if statements, else statements, anything like that, you need to make sure everywhere your code can possibly end up, you have a return statement. So if I had like, if, I don't know, if something here, I would have to return here. And I would have to return also down here. Because if I don't make a return right here, if I delete this return, then it's possible that not all code paths will return a value, because if something equals false, then we won't go down this code path, we won't return a value, and Godot won't be happy. So clean this back up the way we want it. We want to return new number plus 1. Also, something we can't do, can't write anything past the print statement. And the reason for that is that, we can't write anything after the return statement. And the reason for that is this is where the function ends. We're going to return this value and then we're going to be done. We exit this function. So when I call this, even though we're calling the function up here, we're never going to call this line of code. You can see we get the number 6, nothing else is printed, and our debugger even tells us, can't reach this code, it's past the return statement. So 2 things to keep in mind: all your code paths must return a value associated with what your function returns. And also, you need to make sure you don't put anything after the return statement. Okay, so that's kind of the bare basics of functions. You can extend this, you can add more arguments, second number, and have it be an int. Whatever you want to do. But let's stop that for right now. Let's say that this function has outgrown this script. It is now something that you need all over the place. What do you do? We're going to move this function into its own class, and we're going to look at how that's done. So we're going to make a new script down here. We're just going to call it new class. For the sake of argument. For the sake of argument? For the sake of naming. So we're going to open it up. Right now it extends node. We're going to use a little trick called class name, and then we're going to call it new class. So what the class name keyword does is it makes it so we can use this class we're about to create anywhere in our program. And we'll see that in just a second. So if we move this function over to the new class we created, we just save it real quick. We're going to take all this out for a second. Instead, we're going to replace it. Now, when you make another class, you still have to reference it in the class you want to use it in. We're going to do that. It's really easy. We're going to use our variable keyword because we're about to create a new variable. Our variable type is going to be of new, our variable name, we're going to call it new class. and our type is going to be of new class. In this statement, we're also going to assign it a value, because right now it doesn't actually equal anything. Right, put equals new class dot new. And in that one line of code, what we've done is we created a reference to the class that we created over here. And you'll see that this new class object that we just created has the function add1. So now we can call that function from this other class. So we'll do the word number, and we'll say that number is going to equal new class dot add1 number. Break that down just a little bit. We're saying that the number variable we create in this class is now going to be whatever new class dot add1 returns when you give it a number. So we're assigning number to the return of new class, which we know just adds 1. So let's run that, and we'll print the result again. Print number, and let's give it a run. We see we have 6 once again. Now, if we didn't do this, if we didn't do number equals new class dot add1, instead we just ran it like this, our number is 5. Because add1 doesn't actually add 1 to number, it adds 1 to new number and returns new number. So in order to use that value, we need to do number equals new class dot number. And now when we run it, we get 6 once again. So that is a basic breakdown of how to use functions in object-oriented programming to your benefit. That's basically a Computer 101 functions course if you were in object-oriented programming, which Godot is an object-oriented programming language. So everyone have a good day, good evening, good night. See ya. Like and subscribe if you want to see videos similar to this one. Comment any criticisms below. Bye.